In compliance with current copyright law, LBS Archival Products produced this replacement volume on paper that meets the ANSI standard Z3928-4 to replace the irreparably deteriorated original. 1. Two stories told by the potato-faced blind man, the skyscraper to the moon, and how the green rat with the rheumatism ran 1,000 miles, twice 3, Slipfoot, and how he nearly always never gets what he goes after 9-2. Two stories about bugs and eggs, many, many weddings in one corner house, 19. Shush, shush, the big buff bunty hen who laid an egg in the postmaster's hat, 27-3. 5 stories about Hat-Track the horse, 6 pigeons, 3 wild Babylonian baboons, 6 umbrellas, Bozo the button buster, how Ragbag Mammy kept her secret while the wind blew away, the village of Hatpins, 33. How 6 pigeons came back to Hat-Track the horse, after many accidents and 6 telegrams, 41. How the 3 wild Babylonian baboons went away in the rain, eating bread and butter, 49. How 6 umbrellas took off their straw hats to show respect to the one big umbrella, 55. How Bozo the button buster busted all his buttons when a mouse came, 63, 4. 2 stories about 4 boys who had different dreams. How Googler and Gagler, the 2 Christmas babies, came home with monkey wrenches, 75. How Johnny the Wham sleeps in money all the time, and Joe the Wimp shines and sees things, 87, 5. 2 stories told by the potato-faced blind man about 2 girls with red hearts, how deep red roses goes back and forth between the clock and the looking-glass, 97. How Pink Peony sent Spuds, the ball-player, up to pick 4 moons, 105.6. 3 stories about moonlight, pigeons, bees, Egypt, Jesse James, Spanish onions, the queen of the cracked heads, the king of the paper sacks. How Dippy the Wisp and Slip Me Liz came in the moonshine where the potato-face blind man sat with his accordion, 11.5. How Hot Balloons and his pigeon daughters crossed over into the Rootabaga Country, 27. How 2 sweetheart Dippies sat in the moonlight on a lumberyard fence and heard about the Sooners and the Boomers, 49.7. 2 stories out of the tall grass, the haystack cricket and how things are different, up in the moon towns, 53. Why the big ball game between hot grounders and the grandstanders was a hot game, 1161-8. 2 stories out of Oklahoma and Nebraska, the Huckabuck family and how they raised popcorn in Nebraska and quit and came back. 69. Yang Yang and Hoo Hoo, or the Song of the Left Foot of the Shadow of the Goose, 81.9. 1 story about big people now and little people long ago. How a skyscraper and a railroad train got picked up and carried away from Pig's Eye Valley, far in the Pickaxe Mountains, 91.10. 3 stories about the letter X and how it got into the alphabet. Pig Wisps 2001, Kiss Me 2000, Blue Silver 2015 full, Page Illustrations, Ragbag, Mammy brings out candy with red and white stripes wrapped around it, frontispiece. Page. On the last step of the stairway my foot slips, 11. The hot cookie pan came with a pan of hot cookies and the coal bucket with coal, 21. The mouse bit the knot and cut it loose, 67. They went to sleep on top of the wagon, 81. She was sitting on a ladder feeding baby clocks to the baby alligators, 11.9. One of the pigeons rang the bell, 129. One of the pigeons rang the bell. 129, one of the pigeons rang the bell. She carried the squash into the kitchen, 71. Out into the snowstorm. Flax Eyes rode that day, 209. 1. 2 stories told by the potato-face blind man. People, Blixie Bimber, Blixie Bimber's mother, the potato-face. blind man, a green rat with the rheumatism, bricklayers, mortar men, riveters, a skyscraper, slipfoot, a stairway to the moon, a trapeze, the skyscraper to the moon, and how the green rat with the rheumatism ran 1,000 miles twice. Blixie Bimber's mother was chopping hash, and the hatchet broke. So Blixie started downtown with 15 cents to buy a new hash hatchet for chopping hash. Downtown, she peeped around the corner nearest the post office, where the potato-faced blind man sat with his accordion. And the old man had his legs crossed, one foot on the sidewalk, the other foot up in the air. The foot up in the air had a green rat sitting on it, tying the old man's shoestrings in knots and double knots. Whenever the old man's foot wiggled and wriggled, the green rat wiggled and wriggled. The tail of the rat wrapped 5 wraps around the shoe and then fastened and tied like a package. On the back of the green rat was a long white swipe from the end of the nose to the end of the tail. 2 little white swipes stuck up over the eyelashes, and 5 short, thick swipes of white played pussy wants, a corner back of the ears and along the ribs of the green rat. They were talking, the old man and the green rat, talking about alligators and why the alligators keep their baby shoes locked up in trunks over the winter time, and why the rats in the moon lock their mittens in ice boxes. "I had the rheumatism last summer a year ago," said the rat. "I had the rheumatism so bad I ran 1,000 miles south and west till I came to the egg towns and stopped in the village of Eggs Up." "So?" quizzed the potato face. "There in the village of Eggs Up, they asked me, 'Do you know how to stop the moon moving?' I answered them, 'Yes, I know how.' A baby alligator told me, but I told the baby alligator I wouldn't tell. Many years ago, there in that village of Eggs Up, they started making a skyscraper to go up till it reached the moon. They said, 'We will step in the elevator and go up to the roof and sit on the roof and eat supper on the moon.' The bricklayers and the mortar men and the iron riveters and the wheelbarrowers and the plasterers went higher and higher, making that skyscraper, till at last they were halfway up to the moon, saying to each other while they worked, 'We will step in the elevator and go up to the roof and sit on the roof and eat supper on the moon.' Yes, they were halfway up to the moon. And that night, looking at the moon, they saw it move, and they said to each other, 'We must stop the moon moving.' And they said later, 'We don't know how to stop the moon moving.' And the bricklayers and the mortar men and the iron riveters and the wheelbarrowers and the plasterers said to each other, 'If we go on now and make this skyscraper, it will miss the moon, and we will never go up in the elevator and sit on the roof and eat supper on the moon.' So they took the skyscraper down and started making it over again, aiming it straight at the moon again. And one night, standing looking at the moon, they saw it move, and they said to each other, 'We must stop the moon moving,' saying later to each other, 'We don't know how to stop the moon moving.' And now they stand in the streets at night there in the village of Eggs Up, stretching their necks, looking at the moon and asking each other, 'Why does the moon move, and how can we stop the moon moving?' Whenever I saw them standing there, stretching their necks, looking at the moon, I had a zigzag ache in my left hind foot, and I wanted to tell them what the baby alligator told me, the secret of how to stop the moon moving. One night that ache zigzagged me so, way inside my left hind foot. It zigzagged so I ran home here 1,000 miles. The potato-faced blind man wriggled his shoe, and the green rat wriggled, and the long white swipe from the end of the nose to the end of the tail of the green rat wriggled. "Is your rheumatism better?" the old man asked. The rat answered, "Any rheumatism is better if you run 1,000 miles twice." And Blixie Bimber going home with the 15-cent hash hatchet for her mother to chop hash, Blixie said to herself, "It is a large morning to be thoughtful about." Slipfoot, and how he nearly always never gets what he goes after. Blixie Bimber flipped out of the kitchen one morning, first saying goodbye to the dishpan, goodbye to the dishpan, goodbye to the dish rag, goodbye to the dish towel for wiping dishes. Under one arm she put a basket of peonies she picked, under the other arm she put a basket of jonquils she picked. Then she flipped away up the street and downtown, where she put the baskets of peonies and jonquils, one on each side of the potato-faced blind man. I picked the pink and lavender peonies, and I picked the yellow jonquils for you to be smelling one on each side of you this fine early summer morning, she said to the potato face. Have you seen anybody good to see lately? Slipfoot was here this morning, said the old man. And who is Slipfoot? Asked Blixie. I don't know. He says to me, I got a foot always slips. I used to wash windows, and my foot slips. I used to be king of the collar buttons, king of $1 million, and my foot slips. I used to be king of the peanuts, king of $1 million again. I used to be king of the oyster cans, selling 1 million cans a day. I used to be king of the peanut sacks, selling 10 million sacks a day. And every time I was a king, my foot slips. Every time I had $1 million, my foot slips. Every time I went high and put my foot higher, my foot slips. Somebody gave me a slipfoot. I always slip. So you call him Slipfoot? Asked Blixie. Yes, said the old man. Has he been here before? Yes, he was here a year ago, saying, I marry a woman and she runs away. I run after her, and my foot slips. I always get what I want, and then my foot slips. I ran up a stairway to the moon one night. I shoveled a big sack full of little gold beans, little gold bricks, little gold bugs on the moon, and I ran down the stairway from the moon. On the last step of the stairway, my foot slips, and all the little gold beans, all the little gold bricks, all the little gold bugs spill out and spill away. When I get down the stairway, I am holding the sack, and the sack holds nothing. I am all right always till my foot slips. I jump on a trapeze, and I go swinging, swinging, swinging out where I am going to take hold of the rainbow and bring it down where we can look at it close. And I hang by my feet on the trapeze, and I am swinging out where I am just ready to take hold of the rainbow and bring it down. Then my foot slips. What is the matter with Slipfoot? Asks Blixie. He asks me that same question, answered the potato-faced blind man. He asks me that every time he comes here. I tell him all he needs is to get his slipfoot fixed so it won't slip. Then he'll be all right. I understand you, said Blixie. You make it easy. You always make it easy. And before I run away, will you promise me to smell of the pink and lavender peonies and the yellow jonquils all day today? I promise, said the potato face. Promises are easy. I like promises. So do I, said the little girl. It's promises pushing me back home to the dishpan, the dish rag, and the dish towel for wiping dishes. Look out, you don't get a slipfoot, warned the old man as the girl flipped up the street going home. Two stories about bugs and eggs. People, little bugs, big bugs, the rag doll. The broom handle, hammer and nails, the hot cookie pan, the ice tongs, the coal bucket, the bushel basket, jackknife kindling wood, splinters, shush, shush, the postmaster, the hardware man, the policeman, the postmaster's hat, a buff banty egg, many, many weddings in one corner house. There was a corner house with corners every way it looked. And up in the corners were bugs with little bug houses, bug doors to open, bug windows to look out of. In the summertime, if the evening was cool, or in the wintertime, if the evening was warm, they played games. Bugs up, bugs down, run bugs, run, beans bugs, beans. This corner house was the place the rag doll and the broom handle came to after their wedding. This was the same time those old people, Hammer and Nails, moved into the corner house with all the little hammers and all the little nails. So there they were, the young couple, the rag doll and the broom handle, and that old family, Hammer and Nails, and up in the corners among the eave troughs and the roof shingles, the bugs with little bug houses, bug doors to open, bug windows to look out of, and bug games. Bugs up, bugs down, run, bugs, run, or beans, bugs, beans. Around the corner of the house every Saturday morning came the hot cookie pan with a pan of hot cookies for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the rest of the week. The ice tongs came with ice, the coal bucket came with coal, the potato sack came with potatoes. And the bushel basket was always going or coming and saying under his breath, "Bushels, bushels, bushels." One day the bugs in the little bug houses opened the bug doors and looked out of the bug windows and said to each other, "They are washing their shirts and sewing on buttons. There is going to be a wedding." And the next day the bugs said, "They are going to have a wedding and a wedding breakfast for jackknife and kindling wood. They are asking everybody in the kitchen, the cellar, and the backyard to come." The wedding day came. The people came. From all over the kitchen, the cellar, the backyard they came. The rag doll and the broom handle were there. Hammer and nails and all the little hammers and all the little nails were there. The ice tongs, the coal bucket, the potato sack were all there, and the bushel basket going and coming and saying under his breath, "Bushels, bushels, bushels," and, of course, the hot cookie pan was there hopping up and down with hot cookies. So jackknife and kindling wood began living in the corner house. A child came. They named her Splinters. And the hot cookie pan and Splinters met and kissed each other and sat together in cozy corners close to each other. And the bugs high up in the corners in the little bug houses, they opened the bug doors, looked out of the bug windows and said, "They are washing their shirts and sewing on buttons. There is a wedding again, the hot cookie pan and Splinters." And now they have many, many children, the hot cookie pan and Splinters. Their children have gone all over the world and everybody knows them. Whenever you find a splinter or a sliver or a shiny little shaving of wood in a hot cookie, the bugs in the little bug houses say, whenever you find a splinter or a sliver or a shiny little shaving of wood in a hot cookie, it is the child of the hot cookie pan and the girl named Splinters, the daughter of Jackknife and Kindling Wood, who grew up and married the hot cookie pan. And sometimes if a little bug asks a big bug, a queer, quizzical question hard to answer, the big bug opens a bug door, looks out of a bug window and says to the little bug, "If you don't believe what we tell you, go and ask Hammer and Nails or any of the little hammers and nails." Then run and listen to the bushel basket going and coming and saying under his breath, "Bushels, bushels, bushels, shush, shush," the big buff banty hen who laid an egg in the postmaster's hat. Shh. Was a big buff banty hen. She lived in a coop. Sometimes she marched out of the coop and went away and laid eggs, but always she came back to the coop. And whenever she went to the front door and laid an egg in the doorbell, she rang the bell once for 1 egg, twice for 2 eggs, and a dozen rings for a dozen eggs. Once, Shush, Shush went into the house of the Sniggers family and laid an egg in the piano. Another time she climbed up in the clock and laid an egg in the clock, but always she came back to the coop. One summer morning, Shush, Shush marched out through the front gate, up to the next corner and the next, till she came to the post office. There she walked into the office of the postmaster and laid an egg in the postmaster's hat. The postmaster put on his hat, went to the hardware store and bought a keg of nails. He took off his hat and the egg dropped into the keg of nails. The hardware man picked up the egg, put it in his hat, and went out to speak to a policeman. He took off his hat, speaking to the policeman, and the egg dropped on the sidewalk. The policeman picked up the egg and put it in his police hat. The postmaster came past. The policeman took off his police hat, and the egg dropped down on the sidewalk. The postmaster said, "I lost that egg. It is my egg," picked it up, put it in his postmaster's hat, and forgot all about having an egg in his hat. Then the postmaster, a long, tall man, came to the door of the post office, a short, small door. And the postmaster didn't stoop low, didn't bend under, so he bumped his hat and his head on the top of the doorway, and the egg broke and ran down over his face and neck. And long before that happened, Shush Shush was home in her coop, standing in the door saying, "It is a big day for me because I laid one of my big buff banty eggs in the postmaster's hat." There, Shush 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 stays living in a coop. Sometimes she marches out of the coop and goes away and lays eggs in pianos, clocks, hats. But she always comes back to the coop. And whenever she goes to the front door and lays an egg in the doorbell, she rings the bell once for 1 egg, twice for 2 eggs, and a dozen rings for a dozen eggs. 3. 5 stories about Hatrack the horse, 6 pigeons, 3 wild Babylonian baboons, 6 umbrellas, Bozo the button buster. People, Hatrack the horse, Peter Potato Blossom wishes, Ragbag, Mammy Gims, Whiffle, the Chick, Chickamauga, Chattanooga, Chattahoochee, Blue Mist, Bubbles, Wednesday evening in the twilight and the gloaming telegrams, the 3 wild Babylonian baboons, 3 umbrellas, the night policeman, 6 umbrellas, the big umbrella, straw hats, Dippy the Wisp, Bozo, the button buster, a mouse, deep red roses, the beans are burning sweeter than the bees humming. How Ragbag Mammy kept her secret while the wind blew away the village of hatpins. There was a horse-faced man in the village of cream puffs. People called him Hatrack the horse. The skin stretched tight over his bones. Once a little girl said, "His eyes look like lightning bugs lighting up the summer night coming out of 2 little doors." When Hatrack the horse took off his hat, he reached his hand around behind and hung the hat on a shoulder bone sticking out. When he wanted to put on his hat, he reached his hand around and took it off from where it was hanging on the shoulder bone sticking out behind. One summer, Hatrack said to Peter Potato Blossom Wishes, "I am going away up north and west in the Rootabaga Country to see the towns different from each other. Then I will come back east as far as I went west, and south as far as I went north, till I am back again where my little pal Peter Potato Blossom Wishes lives in the village of Cream Puffs." So he went away, going north and west, and coming back east and south till he was back again in his hometown, sitting on the front steps of his little red shanty, fixing a kite to fly. "Are you glad to come back?" asked Peter. "Yes, this is home. This is the only place where I know how the winds act up so I can talk to them when I fly a kite. Tell me what you saw and how you listened, and if they handed you any nice packages." "They handed me packages, all right," said Hatrack the horse. "Away far to the west I came to the village of hatpins," he went on. "It is the place where they make all the hatpins for the hats to be pinned on in the Rootabaga Country. They asked me about the village of cream puffs and how the winds are here, because the winds here blow so many hats off that the village of hatpins sells more hatpins to the people here than anywhere else. There is an old woman in the village of hatpins. She walks across the town and around the town every morning and every afternoon. On her back is a big rag bag. She never takes anything out of the rag bag. She never puts anything in. That is, nobody ever sees her put anything in or take anything out. She has never opened the rag bag telling people to take a look and see what is in it. She sleeps with the rag bag for a pillow, so it is always with her and nobody looks into it unless she lets them. And she never lets them. Her name? Everybody calls her Ragbag Mammy. She wears aprons with big pockets, and though she never speaks to big grown-up people, she is always glad to meet little growing people, boys and girls. And especially, most of all, she likes to meet boys and girls who say, "Gimme once like that," or "Gimme, gimme twice like that," or "Gimme, gimme, gimme 3 times," or "Gimme, gimme, 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 gimmes more times than we can count. She likes to meet the Gimes because she digs into her pockets and brings out square chocolate drops and round chocolate drops and chocolate drops shaped like a half moon, barber pole candy with red and white stripes wrapped around it. All day suckers so long they last not only all day but all this week and all next week, and different kinds of jackstones. Some that say chink chink on the sidewalks and some that say tinsy wentsy chink chink when they all bunch together on the sidewalks, and some that say tinsy when they all bunch together on the sidewalk. And sometimes if one of the Gims is crying and feeling bad, she gives the Gimme a doll only as big as a child's hand. But the doll can say the alphabet and sing little Chinese Assyrian songs. Of course, said Hatrack the horse, reaching his hand around to see if his hat was hanging on behind. Of course, you have to have sharp ears and listen close up and be nice when you are listening, if you are going to hear a doll say the alphabet and sing little Chinese Assyrian songs. I could hear them, said Peter Potato Blossom Wishes. I am a nice listener. I could hear those dolls sing the little Chinese Assyrian songs. I believe you, little pal of mine, said Hatrack. I know you have the ears and you know how to put your ears so you hear. Of course, every morning and every afternoon when Ragbag Mammy walks across the town and around the town in the village of Hatpins, people ask her what is in the rag bag on her back. And she answers, "It is a nice day we are having," or "I think the rain will stop when it stops raining, don't you?" Then if they ask again and beg and plead, "What is in the rag bag?" "What is in the rag bag?" she tells them. "When the wind blows away the village of Hatpins and blows it so far away it never comes back, then, I will tell you what is in the rag bag." One day the wind came along and blew the village of Hatpins loose, and after blowing it loose carried it high off in the sky. And the people were saying to each other, "Well, now we are going to hear Ragbag Mammy tell us what is in the rag bag." And the wind kept blowing, carrying the village of Hatpins higher and farther and farther and higher. And when at last it went away so high it came to a white cloud, the hatpins in the village all stuck out and fastened the village to the cloud so the wind couldn't blow it any farther. And after a while they pulled the hatpins out of the cloud, and the village dropped back right down where it was before. And Ragbag Mammy goes every morning and every afternoon with the rag bag on her back across and around the town. And sometimes people say to her, "The next time the wind blows us away, the next time the wind will blow us so far there won't be any cloud to fasten hatpins in, and you will have to tell us what is in the rag bag." And Ragbag Mammy just answers, "Yes, yes, 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 yes," and goes on her way looking for the next boy or girl to say, "Gimme's once like that," or "Gimme's twice like that," or Gimme's twice like that," or Gimme twice like that," or Gimme gum. More times than we can count. Mild. And if a child is crying, she digs into her pockets and pulls out the doll that says the alphabet and sings little Chinese Assyrian songs. And, said Peter, Potato Blossom wishes you have to listen close up with your ears and be nice when you are listening. "In the village of Hatpins that the wind nearly blew away forever," said Hatrack the horse. And Peter Potato Blossom Wishes skipped away down from the little red shanty, skipped down the street, and then began walking slow, saying to herself, "I love Hatrack the horse like a grand uncle. His eyes look like lightning bulbs lighting up the summer night coming out of two little doors." How 6 pigeons came back to Hatrack the horse. After many accidents and 6 telegrams, 6 crooked ladders stood against the front of the shanty where Hatrack the horse lived. Yellow roses all on fire were climbing up and down the ladders, up and down and crossways. And leaning out on both sides from the crooked ladders were vines of yellow roses, leaning, curving, nearly falling. Hatrack the horse was waiting. This was the morning Whiffle the chick was coming. "Sit here on the cracker box and listen," he said to her when she came. "Listen, and you will hear the roses saying, 'This is climbing time for all yellow roses, and climbing time is the time to climb. How did we ever learn to climb? Only by climbing.' Listen, and you will hear, steeth, steeth, steeth. It is the feet of the yellow roses climbing up and down and leaning out and curving and nearly falling. Steeth. Steeth, 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 steeth. Steen on a cracker box listening to the yellow roses climb around the 6 crooked ladders. Hat-Track the horse came out. On his shoulders were 2 pigeons, on his hands 2 pigeons. And he reached his hand around behind his back where his hat was hanging, and he opened the hat and showed Whiffle the chick 2 pigeons in the hat. They are lovely pigeons to look at, and their eyes are full of lessons to learn, said Whiffle the chick. Maybe you will tell me why you have their feet wrapped in bandages, hospital liniment bandages full of hospital liniment smells. Why do you put soft mittens on the feet of these pigeons so lovely to look at? They came back yesterday. They came back home, was the answer. They came back limping on their feet with the toes turned in so far they nearly turned backward. When they put their bleeding feet in my hands one by one, each one, it was like each one was writing his name in my hand with red ink. Did you know they were coming? Asked Whiffle. Every day the last 6 days I get a telegram, 6 telegrams from 6 pigeons, and at last they come home. And ever since they come home, they are telling me they come because they love Hat-Track the horse and the yellow climbing roses climbing over the 6 crooked ladders. Did you name your pigeons with names? Asked Whiffle. These 3, the sandy and golden brown, all named themselves by where they came from. This is Chickamauga, here is Chattanooga, and this is Chattahoochee. And the other 3 all got their names from me when I was feeling high and easy. This is Blue Mist, here is Bubbles, and last of all, take a look at Wednesday evening in the twilight and the gloaming. Do you always call her Wednesday evening in the twilight and the gloaming? Not when I am making coffee for breakfast. If I am making coffee for breakfast, then I just call her Wednesday evening. Didn't you tie the mittens on her feet extra special nice? Yes, she is an extra special nice pigeon. She cries for pity when she wants pity. And she shuts her eyes when she doesn't want to look at you. And if you look deep in her eyes when her eyes are open, you will see lights there exactly like the lights on the pastures and the meadows when the mist is drifting on a Wednesday evening just between the twilight and the gloaming. A week ago yesterday, they all went away. And they won't tell why they went away. Somebody clipped their wings, cut off their flying feathers so they couldn't fly, and they won't tell why. They were 600 miles from home, but they won't tell how they counted the 600 miles. 100 miles a day they walked, 600 miles in a week, and they sent a telegram to me every day, one writing a telegram one day and another writing a telegram the next day, all the time walking 100 miles a day with their toes turned in like pigeon toes turn in. Do you wonder they needed bandages, hospital liniment bandages on their feet and soft mittens? Show me the telegrams they sent you, one every day for 6 days while they were walking 600 miles on their pigeon toes. So Hat-Track the horse got the 6 telegrams. The reading on the telegrams was like this. 1. Feet are as good as wings if you have to. Chickamauga. 2. If you love to go somewhere, it is easy to walk. Chattanooga. 3. In the night sleeping you forget whether you have wings or feet or neither. Chattahoochee. 4. What are toes for if they don't point to what you want? Blue Mist. 5. Anybody can walk hundreds of miles putting one foot ahead of the other. Bubbles. 6. Pity me. Far is far, near is near, and there is no place like home when the yellow roses climb up the ladders and sing in the early summer. Pity me. New Year's Day. Evening in the twilight and the gloaming. Did they have any accidents going 600 miles walking with their little pigeon toes turned in? Asked Whiffle. Once they had an accident, said Hat-Track, with Chattahoochee standing in his hat, Chickamauga on his right shoulder, Chattanooga on his left, and holding Blue Mist and Bubbles on his wrists. They came to an old wooden bridge. Chattahoochee and Wednesday evening both cried out, "The bridge will fall if we all walk on it the same time." But they were all 6 already on the bridge, and the bridge began sagging and tumbled them all into the river. But it was good for them all to have a footbath for their feet, Wednesday evening explained. I got a suspicion you like Wednesday evening in the twilight, and the gloaming best of all, spoke up Whiffle. Well, Wednesday evening was the only one I noticed making any mention of the yellow roses in her telegram, Hat-Track the horse explained, as he picked up Wednesday evening and reached her around and put her to perch on the shoulder bone on his back. Then the old man and the girl sat on the cracker box, saying nothing, only listening to the yellow roses all on fire with early summer climbing up the crooked ladders, up and down and crossways, some of them leaning out and curving and nearly falling. How the 3 wild Babylonian baboons went away in the rain, eating bread and butter. One morning when Hat-Track the horse went away from his shanty, he put 3 umbrellas in the corner next to the front door. His pointing finger pointed at the 3 umbrellas as he said, "If the 3 wild Babylonian baboons come sneaking up to this shanty and sneaking through the door and sneaking through the house, then all you 3 umbrellas open up like it was raining, jump straight at the baboons and fasten your handles in their hands. Then all 3 of you stay open as if it was raining, and hold those handles in the hands of the baboons and never let go till I come." Hat-Track the horse went away. The 3 umbrellas stood in the corner next to the front door. And when the umbrellas listened, they could hear the 3 wild Babylonian baboons sneaking up to the shanty. Soon the baboons, all hairy all over, bangs down their foreheads, came sneaking through the door. Just as they were sneaking through the door, they took off their hats to show they were getting ready to sneak through the house. Then the 3 umbrellas in the corner opened up as if it was raining. They jumped straight at the 3 wild Babylonian baboons, and they fastened their handles tight in the hands of the baboons and wouldn't let go. So there were the 3 wild Babylonian baboons, each with a hat in his left hand and an open umbrella in his right hand. When Hat-Track the horse came home, he came quiet. He opened the front door, quiet. Then he looked around inside the house, quiet. In the corner where he had stood the 3 umbrellas, he saw the 3 wild Babylonian baboons on the floor, sleeping, with umbrellas over their faces. The umbrellas were so big they couldn't get through the door, said Hat-Track the horse. For a long time he stood looking at the bangs hanging down the foreheads of the baboons while they were sleeping. He took a comb and combed the bangs down the foreheads of the baboons. He went to the cupboard and spread bread and butter. He took the hats out of the left hands of the baboons and put the hats on their heads. He put a piece of bread and butter in the hand of each baboon. After that he snipped each one across the nose with his finger, snippity-snip, just like that. They opened their eyes and stood up. Then he loosened the umbrella handles from their right hands and led them to the door. They all looked out. It was raining. "Now you can go," he told the baboons. And they all walked out of the front door, and they seemed to be snickering and hiding the snickers. The last he saw of them, they were walking away in the rain, eating bread and butter. And they took off their hats so the rain ran down and slid off on the bangs of their foreheads. Hat-Track the horse turned to the umbrellas and said, "We know how to make a surprise party when we get a visit from the Babylonian baboons with their bangs falling down their foreheads, don't we?" That is what happened, as Hat-Track the horse told it to the night policeman in the village of Cream Puffs. How 6 umbrellas took off their straw hats to show respect to the one big umbrella. Wherever Dippy the Wisp went, she was always changing hats. She carried 2 hat boxes with big picture hats on her right arm, and she carried 2 hat boxes with big picture hats on her left arm. And she changed from green and gold hats to purple and gray hats, and then back to green and gold whenever she felt like it. Now the hill that runs down from the shanty of Hat-Track the horse toward the village of Cream Puffs is a long, long hill. And one morning the old man sat watching, and away down at the bottom of the long, long hill he saw 4 hat boxes. Somebody was coming to call on him, and he knew it was Dippy the Wisp. The hat boxes came up the hill. He saw them stop once, stop twice, stop more times. So he knew Dippy the Wisp was changing hats, changing from green and gold to purple and gray and then back to green and gold. When at last she got to the top of the hill and came to the shanty of Hat-Track the horse, she said to him, "Make up a story and tell me. Make up the story about umbrellas. You have traveled all over the Rootabaga Country. You have seen so many umbrellas, and such wonderful umbrellas. Make me up a big, elegant story about umbrellas." So Hat-Track the horse took his hat off his head, reached around and hung it on one of the shoulder bones sticking out behind on his back. And the old man looked with a faraway look down the long, long hill running from his shanty toward the village of Cream Puffs. Then he told her this story. "One summer afternoon I came home and found all the umbrellas sitting in the kitchen with straw hats on, telling each other who they are. The umbrella that feeds the fishes fresh buns every morning stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that feeds the fishes fresh buns every morning.' The umbrella that fixes the clocks free of charge stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that fixes the clocks free of charge.' The umbrella that peels the potatoes with a pencil and makes a pink ink with the peelings stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that peels the potatoes with a pencil and makes a pink ink with the peelings.' The umbrella that eats the rats with pepper and salt and a clean napkin every morning stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that eats the rats with pepper and salt and a clean napkin every morning.' The umbrella that washes the dishes with a wiper and wipes the dishes with a washer every morning stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that washes the dishes with a wiper and wipes the dishes with a washer every morning.' The umbrella that covers the chimney with a dishpan before it rains stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that covers the chimney with a dishpan before it rains.' The umbrella that runs to the corner to get corners for the handkerchiefs stood up and said, 'I am the umbrella that runs to the corner to get corners for the handkerchiefs.' Now, while the umbrellas are all sitting in the kitchen with their straw hats on telling each other who they are, there comes a big black stranger of an umbrella, walking into the kitchen without opening the door, walking in without knocking, without asking anybody, without telling anybody beforehand. 'Since we are telling each other who we are,' said the stranger, 'since we are telling each other who we are, I am going to tell you who I am. I am the umbrella that holds up the sky. I am the umbrella the rain comes through. I am the umbrella that tells the sky when to begin raining and when to stop raining. I am the umbrella that goes to pieces when the wind blows and then puts itself together again when the wind goes down. I am the first umbrella, the last umbrella, the one and only umbrella all other umbrellas are named after, first, last, and always." When the stranger finished this speech, telling who he was and where he came from, all the other umbrellas sat still for a little while to be respectful. Then they all got up, took off their straw hats, walked up to the stranger and laid those straw hats at his feet. They wanted to show him they had respect for him. Then they all walked out. First the umbrella that feeds the fishes fresh buns every morning, then the umbrella that fixes the clocks free of charge, then the umbrella that peels the potatoes with a pencil and makes pink ink with the peelings, then the umbrella that eats the rats with pepper and salt and the clean napkin, then the umbrella that washes the dishes with a wiper and wipes the dishes with a washer, then the umbrella that covers the chimney with the dishes with a washer, then the umbrella that covers the chimney with a dishpan before it runs to the corner to get corners for the handkerchiefs. They all laid their straw hats at the feet of the stranger because he came without knocking or telling anybody beforehand, and because he said he is the umbrella that holds up the sky. That big umbrella. The rain goes through first of all, the first and the last umbrella. That was the way Hat-Track the horse finished his story for Dippy the Wisp. She was changing hats, getting ready to go. The old man put his loose, bony arms around her and kissed her for a goodbye. And she put her little dimpled arms around his neck and kissed him for a goodbye. And the last he saw of her that day, she was walking far away down at the bottom of the long, long hill that stretches from Hat-Track's shanty toward the village of Cream Puffs. And twice going down the long hill she stopped and changed hats, opening and shutting the hat boxes, and changing hats from green and gold to purple and gray and back to green and gold. How Bozo the button buster busted all his buttons. When a mouse came one summer evening, the stars in the summer sky seemed to be moving with fishes, cats, and rabbits. It was that summer evening 3 girls came to the shanty of Hat-Track the horse. He asked each one, "What is your name?" And they answered, "First, me, my name is Deep Red Roses. Second, me, my name is The Beans Are Burning. And last of all, me, my name is Sweeter Than the Bees Humming." And the old man fastened a yellow rose for luck in the hair of each one and said, "You ought to be home now." "After you tell us a story," they reminded him. "I can only tell you a sad story all mixed up tonight," he reminded them, "because all day today I have been thinking about Bozo the Button Buster." "Tell us about Bozo the Button Buster," said the girls, feeling in their hair and fixing the yellow roses. The old man sat down on the front steps. His eyes swept away off toward a corner of the sky heavy with mist where it seemed to be moving with firetails, fishes, cats, and rabbits of slow-changing stars. "Bozo had buttons all over him," said the old man. The buttons on Bozo fitted so tight, and there were so many buttons that sometimes when he took his lungs full of new wind to go on talking, a button would bust loose and fly into the face of whoever he was speaking to. Sometimes when he took new wind into his lungs, 2 buttons would bust loose and fly into the faces of 2 people he was speaking to. So people said, "Isn't it queer how buttons fly loose when Bozo fills his lungs with wind to go on speaking?" After a while, everybody called him Bozo the Button Buster. Now, you must understand, Bozo was different from other people. He had a string tied to him. It was a long string hanging down with a knot in the end. He used to say, "Sometimes I forget where I am. Then I feel for the string tied to me, and I follow the string to where it is tied to me. Then I know where I am again." Sometimes when Bozo was speaking and a button busted loose, he would ask, "Was that a mouse? Was that a mouse?" And sometimes he said to people, "I'll talk with you if you haven't got a mouse in your pocket." The last day Bozo ever came to the village of Cream Puffs, he stood on the public square and he was all covered with buttons, more buttons than ever before, and all the buttons fitting tight, and 5, 6 buttons busting loose and flying into the air whenever he took his lungs full of wind to go on speaking. When the sky began to fall, who was it ran out and held up the sky? He sang out, "It was me, ran out and held up the sky when the sky began to fall." When the blue came off the sky, where did they get the blue to put on the sky to make it blue again? It was me, picked the bluebirds and the blue pigeons to get the blue to fix the sky. When it rains now, it rains umbrellas first, so everybody has an umbrella for the rain afterward. Who fixed that? I did. Bozo the Button Buster. Who took the rainbow off the sky and put it back again in a hurry? That was me. Who turned all the barns upside down and then put them right side up again? I did that. Who took the salt out of the sea and put it back again? Who took the fishes out of the sea and put them back again? That was me. Who started the catfish fighting the cats? Who made the slippery elms slippery? Who made the king of the broken bottles a wanderer wandering over the world mumbling, "Easy, easy"? Who opened the windows of the stars and threw fishes, cats, and rabbits all over the frames of the sky? I did. All the time Bozo kept on speaking, the buttons kept on busting because he had to stop so often to fill his lungs with new wind to go on speaking. The public square was filled with piles of buttons that kept busting off from Bozo the Button Buster that day. And at last a mouse came, a sneaking, slippery, quick little mouse. He ran with a flash to the string tied to Bozo, the long string hanging down with a knot in the end. He bit the knot and cut it loose. He slit the string with his teeth as Bozo cried, "I, I, I!" The last of all the buttons busted loose off Bozo. The clothes fell off. The people came up to see what was happening to Bozo. There was nothing in the clothes. The man inside the clothes was gone. All that was left was buttons and a few clothes. Since then, whenever it rains, umbrellas first, so everybody has an umbrella for the rain afterward, or if the sky looks like it is falling, or if a barn turns upside down, or if the king of the broken bottles comes along mumbling, "Easy, easy," or if firetails, fishes, cats, and rabbits come on the sky in the night, or if a button busts loose and flies into somebody's face, people remember Bozo the Button Buster. When the three girls started home, each one said to Hatrack the horse, "It looks dark and lonesome on the prairie, but you put a yellow rose in my hair for luck, and I won't be scared after I get home." 4. 2 stories about 4 boys who had different dreams. People Googler-Gaggler twins, the family doctor, the father of the twins, the mother of the twins, pen wipers and pencil sharpeners, smokestacks and monkey wrenches, monkey faces on the monkey wrenches, left-handed monkey wrenches, potato face, blind man, axe me, no questions, Johnny the Wham, Joe the Wimp, grasshoppers, $1,000 bills, brass doors, Lizzie Lazarus, how Googler and Gaggler, the 2 Christmas babies, came home with monkey wrenches. 2 babies came one night in snowstorm weather, came to a tar paper shack on a cinder patch next the railroad yards on the edge of the village of Liver and Onions. The family doctor came that night, came with a bird of a spiz car throwing a big spotlight of a headlight through the snow of the snowstorm on the prairie. "Twins," said the doctor. "Twins," said the father and mother. And the wind as it shook the tar paper shack and shook the doors and the padlocks on the doors of the tar paper shack, the wind seemed to be howling softly, "Twins, twins." 6 days and Christmas Eve came. The mother of the twins lit 2 candles, 2 little 2 for a nickel candles in each little window. And the mother handed the father the twins and said, "Here are your Christmas presents." The father took the 2 baby boys and laughed, "Twice times twice is twice." The 2 little 2 for a nickel candles sputtered in each little window that Christmas Eve, and at last sputtered and went out, leaving the prairies dark and lonesome. The father and the mother of the twins sat by the window, each one holding a baby. Every once in a while they changed babies so as to hold a different twin. And every time they changed, they laughed at each other. Twice times twice is twice. One baby was called Googler, the other Gaggler. The 2 boys grew up, and hair came on their bald red heads. Their ears, wet behind, got dry. They learned how to pull on their stockings and shoes and tie their shoestrings. They learned at last how to take a handkerchief and hold it open and blow their noses. Their father looked at them growing up and said, "I think you'll make a couple of peanut wagon men pouring hot butter into popcorn sacks." The family doctor saw the rashes and the itches and the measles and the whooping cough come along one year and another. He saw the husky Googler and the husky Gaggler throw off the rashes and the itches and the measles and the whooping cough. And the family doctor said, "They will go far and see much, and they will never be any good for sitting with the sitters and knitting with the knitters." Googler and Gaggler grew up and turned handsprings, going to school in short pants, whistling with school books under their arms. They went barefooted and got stickers in their hair and teased cats and killed snakes and climbed apple trees and threw clubs up walnut trees and chewed slippery elm. They stubbed their toes and cut their feet on broken bottles and went swimming in brickyard ponds and came home with their backs sunburnt so the skin peeled off. And before they went to bed every night they stood on their heads and turned flip-flops. One morning early in spring the young frogs were shooting silver spears of little new songs up into the sky. Strips of fresh young grass were beginning to flick the hills and spot the prairie with flicks and spots of new green. On that morning, Googler and Gaggler went to school with fun and danger and dreams in their eyes. They came home that day and told their mother, "There is a war between the pen wipers and the pencil sharpeners. Millions of pen wipers and millions of pencil sharpeners are marching against each other, marching and singing, hayfoot, strawfoot, bellyful o' bean soup. The pen wipers and the pencil sharpeners, millions and millions, are marching with drums, drumming ta-rum, ta-rum, ta-rum-tum. The pen wipers say, no matter how many million ink spots it costs, and no matter how many million pencil sharpeners we kill, we are going to kill and kill till the last of the pencil sharpeners is killed. The pencil sharpeners say, no matter how many million shavings it costs, no matter how many million pen wipers we kill, we are going to kill and kill till the last of the pen wipers is killed. The mother of Googler and Gaggler listened, her hands folded, her thumbs under her chin, her eyes watching the fun and the danger and the dreams in the eyes of the two boys. And she said, "Me? Oh, my, but those pen wipers and pencil sharpeners hate each other." And she turned her eyes toward the flicks and spots of new green grass coming on the hills and the prairie, and she let her ears listen to the young frogs shooting silver spears of little songs up into the sky that day. And she told her two boys, "Pick up your feet now and run. Go to the grass, go to the new green grass. Go to the young frogs and ask them why they are shooting songs up into the sky this early spring day. Pick up your feet now and run." At last, Googler and Gaggler were big boys, big enough to pick the stickers out of each other's hair, big enough to pick up their feet and run away from anybody who chased them. One night they turned flip-flops and handsprings and climbed up on top of a peanut wagon where a man was pouring hot butter into popcorn sacks. They went to sleep on top of the wagon. Googler dreamed of teasing cats, killing snakes, climbing apple trees, and stealing apples. Gaggler dreamed of swimming in brickyard ponds and coming home with his back sunburnt so the skin peeled off. They woke up with heavy gunny sacks in their arms. They climbed off the wagon and started home to their father and mother lugging the heavy gunny sacks on their backs. And they told their father and mother, "We ran away to the thimble country where the people wear thimble hats, where the women wash dishes in thimble dishpans, where the men go to work with thimble shovels. We saw war, the left-handed people against the right-handed, and the smokestacks did all the fighting. They all had monkey wrenches, and they tried to wrench each other to pieces. And they had monkey faces on the monkey wrenches to scare each other. All the time they were fighting, the thimble people sat looking on, the thimble women with thimble dishpans, the thimble men with thimble shovels. They waved handkerchiefs to each other, some left-hand handkerchiefs and some right-hand handkerchiefs. They sat looking till the smokestacks with their monkey wrenches wrenched each other all to pieces. Then Googler and Gaggler opened the heavy gunny sacks. "Here," they said, "here is a left-handed monkey wrench, here is a right-handed monkey wrench, and here is a monkey wrench with a monkey face on the handle, to scare with. Now the father and mother of Googler and Gaggler wonder how they will end up. The family doctor keeps on saying, they will go far and see much, but they will never sit with the sitters and knit with the knitters." And sometimes when their father looks at them, he says what he said the Christmas Eve when the 2 for a nickel candles stood 2 by 2 in the windows, "Twice times twice is twice. How Johnny the Wham sleeps in money all the time, and Joe the Wimp shines and sees things." Once the potato-faced blind man began talking about arithmetic and geography, where numbers come from and why we add and subtract before we multiply, when the first fractions and decimal points were invented, who gave the rivers their names, and why some rivers have short names slipping off the tongue easy as whistling, and why other rivers have long names wearing the stub ends off lead pencils. The girl asked me no questions, asked the old man if boys always stay in the hometowns where they are born and grow up, or whether boys pack their pack sacks and go away somewhere else after they grow up. This question started the old man telling about Johnny the Wham and Joe the Wimp and things he remembered about them. Johnny the Wham and Joe the Wimp are two boys who used to live here in the village of Liver and Onions before they went away. They grew up here, carving their initials, J. W, on wishbones and peanuts and wheelbarrows. And if anybody found a wishbone or a peanut or a wheelbarrow with the initials J. W carved on it, he didn't know whether it was Johnny the Wham or Joe the Wimp. They met on summer days, put their hands in their pockets, and traded each other grasshoppers, learning to say yes and no. 1 kick and a spit meant yes. 2 kicks and a spit meant no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of a kick and a spit meant the grasshopper was counting and learning numbers. They promised what they were going to do after they went away from the village. Johnny the Wham said, "I am going to sleep in money up to my knees with $1,000 bills all over me for a blanket." Joe the Wimp said, "I am going to see things and shine, and I am going to shine and see things." They went away. They did what they said. They went up into the grasshopper country near the village of Eggs, over where the grasshoppers were eating the corn in the fields without counting how much. They stayed in those fields till those grasshoppers learned to say yes and no and learned to count. 1 kick and a spit meant yes. 2 kicks and a spit meant no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meant the grasshoppers were counting and learning numbers. The grasshoppers, after that, eating ears of corn in the fields, were counting how many and how much. Today, Johnny the Wham sleeps in a room full of money in the big bank in the village of Eggs Over. The room where he sleeps is the room where they keep the $1,000 bills. He walks in $1,000 bills up to his knees at night before he goes to bed on the floor. A bundle of $1,000 bills is his pillow. He covers himself like a man in a haystack or a straw stack with $1,000 bills. The paper money is piled around him in armfuls and sticks up and stands out around him the same as hay or straw. And Lizzie Lazarus, who talked with him in the village of Eggs Over last week, she says Johnny the Wham told her, "There is music in $1,000 bills." Before I go to sleep at night and when I wake up in the morning, I listen to their music. They whisper and cry. They sing little "oh me, oh my" songs as they wriggle and rustle next to each other. A few with dirty faces, with torn ears, with patches and finger and thumb prints on their faces, they cry and whisper so it hurts to hear them. And often they shake all over laughing. I heard one dirty $1,000 bill say to another, spotted with patches and thumbprints, "They kiss us welcome when we come, they kiss us sweet goodbye when we go." They cry and whisper and laugh about things and special things and extra, extra special things. Pigeons, ponies, pigs, special pigeons, ponies, pigs, extra, extra special pigeons, ponies, pigs, cats, pups, monkeys, big bags of cats, pups, monkeys, extra, extra big bags of special cats, pups, monkeys, jewelry, ice cream, bananas, pie, hats, shoes, shirts, dustpans, rat traps, coffee cups, handkerchiefs, safety pins, diamonds, bottles, and big front doors with bells on. They cry and whisper and laugh about these things, and it never hurts unless the dirty $1,000 bills with torn ears and patches on their faces say to each other. The old potato face sat saying nothing. He fooled a little with the accordion keys as if trying to make up a tune for the words, "They kiss us welcome when we come, they kiss us sweet goodbye when we go." Now, May, no questions, looked at him with a soft look and said softly, "Now maybe you'll tell about Joe the Wimp." And he told her, "Joe the Wimp shines the doors in front of the bank. The doors are brass, and Joe the Wimp stands with rags and ashes and chamois skin keeping the brass shining. The brass shines slick and shows everything on the street like a looking glass," he told Lizzie Lazarus last week. If pigeons, ponies, pigs come past, or cats, pups, monkeys, or jewelry, ice cream, bananas, pie, hats, shoes, shirts, dustpans, rat traps, coffee cups, handkerchiefs, safety pins, or diamonds, bottles, and big front doors with bells on, Joe the Wimp sees them in the brass. I rub on the brass doors, and things begin to jump into my hands out of the shine of the brass. Faces, chimneys, elephants, yellow hummingbirds, and blue cornflowers, where I have seen grasshoppers sleeping 2 by 2 and 2 by 2, they all come to the shine of the brass on the doors when I ask them to. If you shine brass hard, and wish as hard as the brass wishes, and keep on shining and wishing, then always things come jumping into your hands out of the shine of the brass. "So you see," said the potato-faced blind man to Acme, "no question, sometimes the promises boys make when they go away come true afterward." "They got what they asked for, now will they keep it or leave it?" said Acme. "Only the grasshoppers can answer that," was the old man's reply. "The grasshoppers are older, they know more about jumps, and especially grasshoppers that say yes and no and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he sat saying nothing, fooling with the accordion keys as if trying to make up a tune for the words. "They kiss us welcome when we come, they kiss us sweet goodbye when we go." 5. 2 stories told by the potato-faced blind man about 2 girls with red hearts. People, Blixie Bimber, the potato-faced blind man's shoulder straps high, over 6 bits deep red roses, a clock, a looking-glass, baggage, pink peony, Spuds the ball-player, 4 moon peacocks, frogs, oranges, yellow silk handkerchiefs, how deep red roses goes back and forth between the clock and the looking-glass. One morning when big white clouds were shouldering each other's shoulders, rolling on the rollers of a big blue sky, Blixie Bimber came along where the potato-faced blind man sat shining the brass bicker-jiggers on his accordion. "Do you like to shine up the brass bicker-jiggers?" asked Blixie. "Yes," he answered. "One time, a long time ago, the brass bicker-jiggers were gold, but they stole the gold away when I wasn't looking." He blinked the eyelids over his eyeballs and said, "I thank them because they took gold they wanted. Brass feels good to my fingers, the same as gold." And he went on shining up the brass bicker-jiggers on the accordion, humming a little line of an old song. "Tomorrow will never catch up with yesterday because yesterday started sooner." "Seems like a nice morning with the sun spilling bushels of sunshine," he said to Blixie, who answered, "Big white clouds are shouldering each other's shoulders, rolling on the rollers of a big blue sky." "Seems like it's April all over again," he murmured, almost like he wasn't talking at all. "Seems just that way." "April all over again," murmured Blixie, almost like she wasn't talking at all. So they began drifting, the old man drifting his way, the girl drifting her way, till he drifted into a story. And the story he told was like this, and in these words. Deep Red Roses was a lovely girl with blue skylights like the blue skylights of early April in her eyes. And her lips reminded people of deep red roses waiting in the cool of the summer evening.